Okay, so it looks like there's no other way of saying it, but simply put, that Destiny 2 is completely finished. After the June update, Destiny 2 will be receiving no continued update or support for the game after June. Now, Bungie have released, after I made my video that I recorded yesterday, a few hours later, they posted this on their twab, which they do every week. And this one's pretty big. I might do like an in-depth thing in another video, but for now it's just going to be about sort of my thoughts and how that's going to be. So the twab mainly talks about, you know, the content that's going to be coming in June, and sort of, you know, that they are going to stop support after 12 years of making this game. And the June update is going to bring things like a new version of Moments of Triumph called Monuments of Triumph, which is going to be available for all players. They've updated the UI for the director, which is going to be the thing that people like, I guess, because it's got no portal on it, but the portal is still staying. And they're doing a new Pantheon thing. The tiered loot that they're doing with raids, exotics are now going to have tiered loot, and then some new abilities. Some portal changes, and obviously Eververse, and then SRL, which is also coming, which is pretty dope. But also any events, seasonal events like Solstice, Dawning, those events are no longer going to happen because the game's not going to be getting any more support. So yeah, it's a little bit sad to see that Destiny 2 is not getting any support, but in the back of my mind, it was always kind of expected. I wasn't sure 100% that this was going to happen, but it was just in the back of my mind. Like 25% of me was thinking that this could be a possibility, because of the way the last 3 months have been, and sort of the direction that Destiny 2 was headed in the last few years. With Echoes, Edge of Fate, Renegades, it just didn't feel right. And also, you know, we just got details of the impairment loss that Sony had from Bungie, and that also didn't help Bungie's case. And ultimately, it led to this sort of post, right? And it's a little bit weird to me of them finishing Destiny 2 this way, because I think for most people you would have quit Destiny 2, or you might have come back for the final shape, and then once the Light and Darkness saga ended, you just stopped playing the game, because that's what the whole story of Destiny led up to, was us fighting the Witness, killing the Witness, and then, you know, end credits, right? We get that cinematic and then it's over. But then Bungie decided to try and extend the story and try and like go to a new direction in Destiny 2 by introducing things like Echoes. Then we did Edge of Fate, which introduced the 9. I think there was supposed to be a whole big thing about the 9, but Edge of Fate was just sort of poorly received that they had to cancel their whole like story about it. And Renegades. And Renegades is the last major expansion for Destiny 2, and it's a little bit weird to me that Destiny 2 ends in a very weird place, because it's like reading a trilogy, but then you get to like not the final book, but like you're reading halfway through like book 3 out of 5, and then the story just ends there, but it doesn't. It's weird. The story should have ended. The game should have ended probably at the final shape, but they decided to extend the story further and try and go in a new direction. And then the game kind of ends at Renegades. It's very weird. There's no. It doesn't make sense. And I guess they were just trying to continue working on Destiny 2. But honestly, I would have been happy if they had just stopped at the final shape. Because honestly, all the stuff that came after was kind of mid, apart from maybe like one I think episode Heresy was good. But after that, it was just kind of mid. Now, something they do mention, which I will try and find, is that they're going to cancel support for Destiny 2, but in exchange, they're going to work on other games. So I'm just going to try and find where that part is. Here we are. As our focus turns towards a new beginning for Bungie, we will begin work incubating our next games. This part here, which has a lot of people's attention, what could be the next games that are set to release under Bungie? Interestingly enough, the part that I found interesting was that Sony is allowing Bungie to incubate these next games after, seeing the impairment loss, seeing that Destiny 2 has sort of fallen off, and seeing that Marathon hasn't met expectations. That's kind of all Bungie's portfolio is right now. We don't talk about Halo because that's also dead as well. A bunch of just dead, unsuccessful games under Bungie's list right now, in terms of like being live, right, with player counts. Marathon isn't really getting there, and majority of Marathon's player base are Destiny 2 players. Something that I found interesting is something that I thought of. If majority of your players are Destiny, I think it's like 70% or 60 something percent, 60 something along the lines of 70% of of Marathon players are Destiny 2 players. That's your majority player base. You weren't even really able to capture that many new players in the first place, or get people from other extraction shooters. I think what Bungie promised Sony was that Marathon would be the next sort of Arc Raiders. It would launch with over 300,000 players on Steam. It would be getting millions of players daily. And then when Marathon released, it didn't meet those expectations, and it in fact was way worse than Arc Raiders release. And I'm very surprised that Sony has still allowed Bungie to keep going, because I would have assumed that with these expectations being not met and targets not being met, that Sony would either force more new layoffs or take away staff from Bungie, but it looks like that hasn't happened. Maybe it could happen later in the future, I don't know. But aside from that, what other games could they be working on other than, continually working on Marathon? Destiny 2 is obviously not going to get support. Could a Destiny remaster happen? Probably not. If they're saying our next games, I'm not sure if that would mean like working on old games as well. Probably not. They're probably tired of Destiny, to be honest, and working on Destiny, that they literally want to try something new. It's very vague what this is, because you could just assume, could it be remasters? Could it be just literally new titles that we've never seen before? Could they be working on Destiny 3? Destiny 3 is the biggest name that comes up to mind when you hear like next games. My opinion is I don't think Destiny 3 is possible, because first of all, they've abandoned Destiny 2, and they abandoned it for so long that, first of all, think about it. If the developers who just abandoned the game for a few months, do you think those same developers would be capable of making a Destiny 3? With it being a completely different team, most likely, with probably Sony's vision as well, it's not going to be most likely what we want. I feel like it's going to be very controlled, and there's not going to be much creative decision with Bungie's developer team if they do work on Destiny 3. Plus, Destiny 3 would also require so much manpower to make. Like, Destiny 3 would be huge. Loads of destinations, loads of different new features and abilities, and all these animations and designs, and the music, and the other weapons and shit that could be there. it would require so much manpower. Like, it would require every hand on deck to be able to make D3. And if some of the team is working on Marathon, if some of the team is working on incubating gummy bears and whatever the other projects are, who's going to be making D3? It can't be just 100 people. It needs to be like a huge amount of the crew working on Destiny 3 if that ever does come to happen. Because if you only have like 10% of your workforce working on D3, either the game's going to be rushed or it's just going to take an unbelievably long amount of time to release. And I also think that just with Destiny, I think the story's finished. There's nowhere they could really go big, like in terms of, I don't mean like in the lore sense where you can go with like these miniature stories, but in like the grand scheme of things, the Light and Dark Saga is the main part of Destiny. It's the main part of D1. It's the like it was the main part of D2. What story would there be in D3 for them to work on? Like, what creative ideas could you have? They tried the 9, that didn't work out well. That was the next major like bad that we were working against, and it wasn't received well. So if they continued Edge of Fate, if they continued doing stories on the 9, would that work? I don't think so. So I genuinely don't think there's any creative way they could go with a story unless they decide to go full in on the lore and do these like miniature stories that you could do. Like, you could replace Shin Malfa and Dredge and Yor, and tackle, like, they have so many different lore books, and I'm so surprised that they haven't been able to create DLCs or like stories on them, because the lore books are incredible. And like, you obviously have YouTubers like Biaf and Mylan who tackle the lore, and it's so in-depth and it's so good. But I feel like a lot of people just don't read the lore, so it'd be a really refreshing thing to be able to experience the lore in game and like play. I'm just like giving an example. I'm not saying it could happen, but like, imagine having to like replay the part where Shin kills Dredge and Yor. It happened in Forsaken, but it wasn't like too in depth. I'm just giving a vague example. Or like experiencing more of like Rogue's lore and stuff like that. But yeah, those are just examples. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not creative enough to be able to make a story, but maybe you guys have thoughts on what direction D3 could possibly go into. But that's kind of the main part of what I had to say. Not really much else to go on here. I probably will go a little bit more in depth on the TWAB at another time, because I just wanted to get my thoughts out of the way as quickly as possible. Obviously, this is quite a chunky little bit of section to read, and that's just not going to be possible right now, but there will be a lot to cover in the next video, and just stay tuned for that. If you guys have enjoyed the video so far, or if you guys have any comments to say about, you know, what you think personally of the direction that Bungie could be headed in, or how you feel about the game not getting any support after June, you know, just let me know down in the comments below. I'll try and see what everyone says, reply. And yeah, I mean, I've got mixed feelings on this game once again, and it's a little bit sad to see it go after 12 years, because I've enjoyed this style of game. No other game compares to Destiny, man. You can't compare Warframe. Warframe is on its own like level, and Destiny 2 is also on its own level. I don't care if the DLCs have been removed. Sunsetting was just bad corporate decisions, but in terms of the actual way the game plays, it's incredible. I don't care if it's really pay to win. Could you say Warframe's pay to win as well? Yeah, maybe. We can go long and long about this. Okay. But yeah, once again, if you enjoyed, please feel free to like, comment, and sub. Put notifications on so that you don't miss a video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.